Do you feel like life has given you way more than what you can handle? Like every time you turn around, more and more is being asked of you. But what if instead of feeling overwhelmed, you had the determination to not only take on these responsibilities, but to excel at them? That's what we're going to learn about in today's video. And we'll be doing that by diving deep into one of the most iconic anime characters, Bleach's Ichigo Kurosaki, and by exploring his heart, esteem, relationships, and opportunities using the hero framework, we'll see exactly how his journey teaches us about facing and embracing our duty. So we're going to start out with H, the heart, which represents core values and ambitions. Ichigo's heart, his main driving force behind him, is having enough power to protect those that he cares about. And this is something that stems deeply from, well, his childhood. You see, when Ichigo was a child, his mother, Masaki, died protecting him from a hollow. And it was that, well, traumatic experience of losing someone that he just absolutely adored right in front of his eyes, and he just felt powerless, right? That moment, that feeling stuck with him all throughout really the rest of his life, and it kind of shaped who he is as a person. And this feeling that he needs to be able to protect those around him is honestly one of the main things that I find really just awesome about Ichigo as a character. Is not He's not doing it for selfish reasons. He's doing it because that's truly what he believes in. And this is shown as early as the first episode. He beating up a couple bullies because they knocked over the flowers of a deceased girl, and he was like, "No, we're not gonna, you're not gonna do that." But honestly, probably more importantly, is when Rukia gets sent back to the Soul Society after after she committed the taboo of, well, giving her powers to Ichigo so they could live. And even though he relatively just met Rukia, he spent a little bit of time with her and considered her a friend at that point. He was like, well, somebody needs to rescue her, so why not me? And of course, same thing happens with Orihime later on in the series during the Arankar arc. Ichigo's always the first one to step up to protect those who can't do it themselves. And it's because of this strong belief that I think so many people trust in him and believe that he's gonna do what it takes to get the job done, more or less, to be the savior of a given situation. So the question I want to ask for you in this aspect is just, what are your core values? What is something that you truly believe in, that you will go to crazy lengths for? And what can you start doing daily to actually align with this value, with this your heart, right? Your ambitions. And let that guide you in your day-to-day life. Set aside time for those things daily, so that way you can also have a strong foundation in your ambitions, just like Ichigo. So next I want to cover E, esteem, which is the self-worth and confidence. Now, Ichigo is one of the few shonen protagonists that I have seen, and I've seen a lot of shonen that he's just got that swag about him. Like Ichigo is a very, very confident in who he is and what he's capable of. Like, there are very little or very few moments where he's just not about that business. I mean, one of the funniest scenes out of the entire series is when he called the ambulance before he beat up those thugs. Like, yeah, it was peak anime. And but that's just who he is, right? Kind of tying back to his heart and wanting to fulfill his duty of being a protector, being a savior. Ichigo has a bravado about him, and it's not arrogance, right? I know we talked about arrogance recently with everyone's favorite Prince of Sands, right? But when it comes to Ichigo, it's not like he thinks he's better than everybody. He's just like, look, I'm gonna take care of my business regardless of what's happening around me, right? That's the type of person that Ichigo is. But that isn't to say that he doesn't have bouts of self-doubt, this really rears his head and becomes kind of a driving thing throughout the rest of the series after he regains his Shinigami powers, and with it comes his hollow powers and hollowification, right? Because throughout the entire series, up until the last arc, Ichigo always had this internal battle, internal turmoil between himself and his inner hollow, which at the time he didn't really understand exactly how important his hollow was to who he was. But it's kind of created an identity crisis, more or less, because he was, without him really realizing it, rejecting a very vital part of himself. And this is what caused, his hollow Ichigo, or white, whatever you want to call him, Zangetsu. This caused him to be hostile, right? Which is the hollow's nature. But he was trying to teach Ichigo in his own way, and Ichigo just wasn't hearing it, which is fair, right? When you enter the world of Shinigamis and only thing you've ever known hollows to be were hostile and enemies. And for Ichigo, his inner hollow was no different, right? So this caused him to not so much doubt his own abilities. It was just kind of he was scared, right? He was afraid of himself, and that fear was actually holding him back more so than what he even realized. But not all hope is lost, because over time, Ichigo, being the goat that he is, and through the revelation of his birth, right, about his parents and how they met and how his birth came to be, he was finally able to accept himself in his entirety. Not accept the fact that yes, he is part hollow. That's actually part of his Shinigami powers. And not only that, to accept the fact that he's part Quincy, and he's directly related to the main big bad of this final arc, right? So all in all, these are the things that he had to recognize and accept within himself, whether he enjoy it or not, right? Because again, we all have parts of ourselves that we probably don't like too much, but nevertheless they're a part of us, and we have to learn to accept it and move forward. And that's kind of the challenge I want to give you guys, is to begin practicing this idea of self acceptance, being able to acknowledge your flaws, and also being able to celebrate your strengths, celebrate what makes you in your entirety. I made an entire video on about embracing your darkness, and what that means is that acknowledging your flaws, acknowledging the things that you probably aren't, I guess, exactly fond of, but taking it a step further and seeing what can you do to turn those into strengths, to kind of change your mindset around these type of things. And again, that's what Ichigo did with his hollow. Once he understood and accepted that, okay, my hollow is a part of who I am. Like, I am the blade. And that was when he finally became whole, and he became even more of an absolute unit than what he already was. So next is R for relationships, the building and maintaining of meaningful connections. And Ichigo has a lot of different relationships all throughout the series, but one of the main, I guess, group I kind of want to focus on for the scope of this video is actually his relationship with the Gote 13, with Soul Society. It was a nice growth to see throughout the entire series, right? Because again, when the series first starts off, Ichigo doesn't even know that he's part Shinigami, all that type of stuff, right? Until he meets Rukia, and then she gives him her power so they can live and all that type of stuff. And then Soul Society sends Byakuya and Renji to take her back so she can be executed for committing this crime. And Ichigo said, "No, bump that." And him and his group just break in, and that's how Soul Society arc starts, right? And to start off as as an enemy of this ancient organization, he's fighting captain level opponents like Kenpachi. He fought Renji, he fought Byakuya. He attempted to do something against Aizen. All these high level opponents, And then like right after the battle, they're like, all right, cool, yeah, you're pretty cool, kid. Like and I know there's more nuance to how that happened and how it developed, but the main point I kind of want to get to is actually towards the end of the first part of the anime, with the at the end of the Fullbringer arc, when Soul Society agrees to help restore Ichigo's powers. Like, the very taboo that Rukia committed way back when in the beginning, they themselves all committed towards the end, where they were like, yeah, we're gonna give him his powers back, or help him restore his powers rather. And I think is how it all kind of comes full circle. It's pretty beautiful and meaningful, and it shows that Ichigo, just by remaining steadfast in who he is and what he believes in, and never giving up, began to influence and change those around him. I mean, even hard noses like Byakuya grew to respect him, right? Kenpachi, who, Kenpachi just like, if you're strong, you have his respect type thing, right? But all of those powerful figures see Ichigo as a very valuable ally. And then you get ones like Rukia and Renji, who was a rival at one point. They see him as a friend. Like, Ichigo is their friend. And again, it's just from as a viewer seeing how one man can change the entire culture of in this ancient organization. It really just kind of highlights the power that if you just allow yourself to be you and not try to be somebody else, imagine the lives that you get to affect, that you get to influence, hopefully in a positive way. But you never know, right? You never know how you can leverage your life to impact somebody else's. And the question I want to ask for you guys for this section, or the statement I want to give you, is that relationships are complicated. They don't always start off on the right foot. They can start with misunderstandings, or you can have misunderstandings. But the idea is that if they're truly worth it, then don't give up on them, because they can improve with the effort and a little bit of time, and you'd be surprised at who you'll find in your corner. So what I want to encourage you to do is just to give some difficult, challenging relationships, give them the room to kind of grow and to flourish, to do your best with them, and really try to be like Ichigo with the Soul Society, right? Because you never know who you can change just by being yourself. So next is O for opportunities, the creating and seizing chances for growth. Now, Ichigo is someone who was constantly really just pushing himself to be ready just in case he's needed, right? He's never one to just kind of take a break just because things are easy now, right? Now, sure, he's no Saiyan, and you don't see him constantly, just like training, but we know he keeps himself ready. I'm sure being constantly attacked by hollows in Karakura Town helps with that too. But even outside of his normal day-to-day duties as a substitute Soul Reaper, Ichigo never hesitates to use what he can to get stronger, right? I mean, there's never any doubt in this man's mind, and that's part of the reason why I love him so much as a main character. Again, didn't hesitate when Rukia offered, like, hey, I can give you these Soul Reaper powers to, take care of this hollow, right? I mean, he was like, is this really happening? But then when he realized it was, he locked in and then did what he needed to do, right? And even after he lost those powers and he went to Urahara, he was like, look, I need my powers back because I'm going to Soul Society. And Urahara was like, all right, bet you might die. He was like, I don't care. And that's just the type of mentality Ichigo has when it comes to this thing. He doesn't care what it takes. He's just going to do it. And that's the main thing of his O, is that he's gonna go after what he needs to go after. When it came to learning his Bankai, again, learned it in 3 days, was an extremely volatile and dangerous method that only one other person has completed. That being Kisuke, who invented this method in the first place, right? Ichigo was like, I don't care, I need to get it done. But later on, when he meets Shinji and the rest of the visors, he just walked up into their crib. He was like, hey, look, I'm not joining your group. I'm just going to use you all as training dummies, essentially, to learn how to control my hollow. It's like, who has like, this man has some big cojones in order to walk into this powerful group like that and just say, yeah, I'm just going to use you. But again, that's the type of person that Ichigo is. He's not afraid to do what it takes. Even when it came to learning the final Getsuga Tensho from Zangetsu, not really understanding the full scope of what it meant until after he learned the technique. But the fact that Zangetsu was willing to fight him over it kind of lets him know, okay, this is a pretty serious deal. But even after learning the truth about the final Getsuga Tensho and what that meant for Ichigo himself, he still was like, this is what I need to do. This is still what needs to happen in order for me to achieve my goal, which at the time was beating Aizen. So not just Karakura Town, but really the entire world would be saved. And with each of these examples, Ichigo steps up time and time again, not really waiting for things to happen to him, right? He's never just sitting there waiting for a miracle to happen. He's always going after. He's seizing it when it comes to him. When the opportunities arise, there's no hesitation. He's like, yeah, this is what I need to do. So for us, what I encourage us to do is to look for small opportunities in our day-to-day lives and what we need to do. And whether it's just learning a new skill, taking on a new project, at work, or a new side hustle, side business, or just stepping out of your comfort zone. If you're introverted like me, try chatting up a stranger. Just don't get in their panel van. But just take these small steps to challenge yourself and to really start creating these opportunities for growth, because they don't have to be these complete 180s, right? You don't have to go from not being a Shinigami to mastering Bangai in the span of a day. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to do that. It's just taking these little steps day in and day out in order to grow, in order to not be the same, in order to take charge of your life so you can actually get to the place that you want to be. And what I want you to do today is just write down one step. What's one thing that you're going to do today that's going to take you outside of your comfort zone just a little bit, so that way you can get a taste for what that growth looks like. And now, to finally answer the question, what does Ichigo Kurosaki teach us about duty? Well, he teaches us that duty is more than just a responsibility. It's about staying true to your values, your core beliefs, and staying committed to your goals. See, duty isn't just something that is given to you, that's handed to you. It's a promise to yourself that is going to drive you to grow and drive you to push through difficult times. It's saying that, hey, I said I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do it no matter what it takes. And not only that, when your duty is aligned with purpose, it goes from being something that you have to do to a blessing that can actually change your life. So if you enjoyed this breakdown of Ichigo, then be sure to check out my hero analysis playlist, where you can see other character breakdowns just like this one.